Work hard, play hard, and slay through the sweat with Nux Active. Nux Active is high-performance activewear that doesn't compromise on the chic. Power through Pilates, dare to reach your HIIT goals, and strive for that extra rep in Nux Active. Run, don't walk over to nuxactive.com. That's nuxactive.com to check out the latest collection and energizing colorways. And as a gift to you, take 20% off your purchase with promo code GlowUpGirl20 at checkout. Make positive moves with Nux Active. Let's start the show. Welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell-Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope you all are doing well. I hope your week is going great so far. Today, I'll be joined by Beate Chelette. She is a growth architect and founder of the Women's Code and provides visionaries and leaders with proven strategies, blueprints, and growth maps that provide clear steps to improve business systems, strengthen leadership skills, and teams so that your clients and audiences can maximize profits and scale their impact. She is known as a straight shooter in her ability to inspire, empower, and overcome adversity. Her super skill is working with unique personalities and big thinkers and building executable systems. She also is the host of the Business Growth Architect show and is listed among the top 100 global thought leaders by People Home and one of the 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs by HuffPost. So, I am really excited to have this conversation, so stay tuned. I'll be right back with Beate. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, and now I'm going to welcome Beate into the Glow Up Girl podcast. So welcome.
Kyra, I'm excited to be here. Let's talk career. Let's talk success. Let's talk.
Yes.
I can't believe this happened to me too.
Yes. I'm so glad to have you here because you are so well-rounded. You have such a diverse background and so very inspiring. And I'm so excited that you have chosen to join me on the show today to share about you and your background, but also to help my audience out with just more information about turning your dreams into reality. Like, it's just, you did it and you're going to tell us how to do it as well. So let's start with you telling the audience who's listening and watching a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So my name is Beate Chelette. I'm known as the Growth Architect, and I founded the Women's Code, and I help visionaries and leaders to scale their impact and grow their authority. And what that means is that, given my rather extensive experience in entrepreneurship and as a woman, often back in those days as the only woman in the room, I have created a lot of shortcuts, strategies, and systems around how do you get to be heard, have a seat at the table, get stuff done, and are successful, and leave a lot of these things that women are up against behind and not be bothered with what others customarily say about good girls that should be seen but not heard.
Yes. All right. Well, I love all of that. And before you start to give us the nuggets about how we can do better, how we can be seen as an authority in our areas, why don't you tell us about yourself and your story? You are the founder of the Women's Code. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I founded the Women's Code. I did sell a business to Bill Gates, and I, came out after adversity of, 13 really, really difficult years. And I'm sure we're going to go a little bit more into that. But the outcome of that is that I did sell my business to Bill Gates for millions of dollars. And then they asked me to become a senior director of global entertainment and come on board and then be part of the organization. And what I realized, Kyra, is that the way men and women are treated in an organization is very different. That there's stuff that happens over the weekend when you weren't even there and you don't even know what exactly happened. Were they golfing together? Were they having private dinners? Where they had functions that you just didn't have access to? And then by Monday morning, stuff you talked about on Friday was already decided, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I realized that there is this notion amongst men And I don't think that they do this viciously. I think it's just the program in the way it's been set up in this old system that we're all working in, where when women are at each other's throat, then that takes about half of the competition and it leaves more for men than to advance. And so as I'm watching this, I was really amazed on how women like got into these things with each other, and she thinks she's all that, and then they don't get invited to the lunch, and then, you know, stuff disappears, is not talked about. You know, and I just couldn't understand what was happening. And then I realized exactly what was happening. What was happening is that women were, for the most part, so busy with each other and making sure that others weren't going to pass them or pass by them or jump over them, that they took their eyes off the ball of what the big issue was. And the big issue was how do we compete as an authority in our category, as an industry expert in the organization or in the business that we are in. And I found that absolutely fascinating. And so I founded the Women's Code, and the notion was the first step is you kind of got to get clear on your own stuff here, and be clear, like, who do you are? Who do you want to be? How do you want to be perceived? What's your personal brand? How do you step into that? What's your code? So I call it the Women's Code. And then if you have a code, what's your code in dealing with other women? Because unless we solve that, Kyra, we'll never take on the real stuff. And that's what's out there.
Yes, that I love all of what you just said. There's so many nuggets in there, because you're so right. A lot of times we're so busy thinking that if another woman gets a seat at the table, then that means there's not a seat for me. And so it's, yeah.
Why? You know,
I
so there's
know.
like 20 men and there's one woman, another woman comes in, and then that woman goes like, oh my God, now they're going to take my seat away.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
It really is. And I really love that because it's so important. I mean, it's so important. I always tell people, I'm like, we build the table, we make the seats. There's enough for all of us. And guess what? Like you said, I love this, looking at where you are and focusing on where you are an authority, because everybody's strengths and skills are different. So if you can focus on the things that are unique about you and what you bring to the table, and then amplify, elevate the woman next to you. I mean, think about like how we are when we work as a team versus when we're trying behind the scenes to like stab each other in the back, or like, you know, stop another woman from having success.
Yeah. And you know, and really, let's add to that, this particular piece is a piece that's just been sowed by society for as long as we live, is that if we are busy with ourselves, we take the eye off the ball. We don't recognize that we can have a table entirely on our own, that we can become an authority entirely on our own. And there's another critical element that I would like to share. And
Yeah.
When you think about on how we grew up, right, Kyra, and you go to school, so you were really good. Let's say you're really good in writing and in arts and in maybe science, right? And then the teacher comes and he smacks down your math test and says, that was a D, Kyra. You suck at math. You need to get better at math. And then you go and you say, but I'm really good at all this other stuff, right? And the teacher says, yeah, sorry, that's not enough. You have to be really good at everything. And then you learn that in order for you to be really good, you have to be able to retain existing information, regurgitate into existing information, and then you're going to get an A. So your entire life in school and in college, you're going to repeat the same pattern. How much can I cramp in my head? How long can I retain it? Long enough for the test, and then I forget everything. And then I get an A, therefore I get a good grade, and therefore I get all these opportunities everybody talks about. And then one day you go into your organization, company, and your boss says to you, now, Kyra, tell me, what are you really good at? What do you really like to do? And then you go, what kind of conversation is that? Is it a trick question? Are you setting me up to fail? Because that's not what I'm used to. What I'm used to is that you look at what I do, And then you look over my shoulder and you micromanage me. And then you tell me whether or not I have an A. Do I have an A? And the boss says, that's really not the way it works around here. And so
Yeah.
now we get very jealous of other people that we perceive to be being better at something that we do, because they're getting A's and we are not. And so for everybody who's listening, just stop it. Just stop it. That's just not the way it works. The way it works is that you then say, hi, my name is Kyra. I'm amazing at writing. I'm really good understanding sort of the scientific background of it. And if you need a great visual to have that represented, come to me. I'm a wizard with PowerPoint. Please do not come to me with Excel spreadsheet tables and pivot tables. We got to go to somebody else on my team for that. Problem solved.
Yeah, I like that. How'd you know I wasn't good at math?
A lot of the creative people that I talk to are they're doing this because they're good at talking, they're good at storytelling, they're good at illustrating visual concepts. But if you were really good with the math, you may have taken a slightly different profession.
For sure. Yeah, marketer over here. So yes, math is like the least of my favorites. It's the thing that, like you said, you learn, how to do it, right? I know how to do it because I do it every day, for work and different reasons there, but no, not a thing that I enjoy. Okay, well, let's talk about you. Resilience is like in your DNA, and you had to dig yourself out of debt. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So the story really is that when you think about, again, what other people tell you and then what life really does, is that I very early on learned that the things that are made for other people, right? So the middle of the road, that just never seemed to really pan out for me. So I recognized early on that I had to forge my own fortune, but I was clueless. So I have an actual photography degree. And so as I went out in the real world, I had a job. I was a photographer, editor at Elle magazine in Germany, and then I immigrated here. And I took a job as an artist representative and as a producer. And I was working with great clients, Wrangler, Levi's, really good stuff. And then the recession came, not unlike what we're experiencing right now. And I was laid off with a small child, already going through a divorce with an ex-husband who was a pathological liar and an alcoholic. And I had to figure out how to make this work. But I didn't know what I was doing. And, things really were stacked up against me. And then I went through a decade of bad luck, really 13 years. And we're not talking small things. We're talking big things. We're talking riot, fire, flood, earthquake, September 11th, a lawsuit, a tsunami. And now I'm adding a pandemic to my ever-growing repertoire of disasters overcome. So I felt that there was somebody with a frying pan, Kyra, at every corner of my life, just whacking me over the head, with something that was happening. And I'm a single mom, an immigrant from Germany, trying to figure out this. I don't have any family here at all. All my family's in Germany. And so that was a very, 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 very difficult road. And so I got deep, deep into debt. And I had been in this lawsuit that I just mentioned. And I thought I, would come out of it because I had a great production season in front of me. But then September 11th came and wiped everything out in one day. So I literally lost my business, the first $500,000 in January and the second $500,000 in September. And then I had to figure out what else I was going to do. And then the lawsuit settled a couple months later, and it turned out to be zero. So I got rid of all my debt. I paid the lawyer, and then I had nothing. And so I had to go back and start the stock photography syndication business, which was a great idea. But remember, I had no money. So I had to go back into debt. And somehow there's something about the $135,000 number that, I just kept getting to. And so I'm $135,000 in debt, and it's game over at this point. I have to now borrow money to pay interest on borrowed money. So even for those of you who are not very good at math, that's a really bad formula, because it means that you have, in order to pay interest, you have to borrow money. And that means I made no income. And I fly to Germany, and I want to drum up some business. I visited my father. My father had a stroke. My father did not have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer. And so he passes away within only 6 weeks. So I'm standing at this grave in Germany, and and if you go there with me, you're like in this small town in Nether Bavaria on this beautiful, picturesque mountain hill, really, where there's a Baroque church overlooking the entire valley. We just buried my dad. My phone rings. It's my office from Los Angeles. Now we're losing the house. We've just been served a notice. And at that moment, I fell to my knees, Kyra, and I yelled at God, and I raised my fist and I says, look, if you have any plan, this would be a really good time to fill me in, because I mean, at this point, it's over, right? I mean, 135,000 dead. My dad's just passed away. My biggest supporter, friend, support network. I mean, what am I going to do? So I'm like, okay, I'll surrender. I've done absolutely everything I could. And when I got back from Los Angeles, back from Germany to Los Angeles, I get a letter from the White House. And I had written in my absolute desperation, Kyra, a letter to the White House, to then President George W. Bush. And so this letter says, the president is delighted to hear from you. No. Please don't assume for 1 minute that the president of the United States ever saw this letter, right? But somebody there saw this letter, and it's their job, some intern, to respond. And so they put me in touch with the Small Business Administration. And because the letter was from the White House, I got in touch with the Deputy Chief Director, which is the second in command. They helped me then to restructure my debt into a 10-year fixed loan. That freed up my line of credit. That gave me the cash. 3 months later, I'm break even. 18 months later, I'm the world leader in my category. And that's how this Bill Gates company came and says, hey, can you tell us how you do it? And I said, no, you want it, you buy it. And then they did.
Wow. I am like speechless, because
and that never happens because this is your podcast.
But wow, my gosh.
Like you're sweating just me saying that, right? You go like, geez, girl, right?
I mean, it is just a full circle moment of like, gosh,
blowing up fast.
Right. Well, I don't want anybody out there listening or watching thinking that it was fast, because I mean, just hearing you tell the story, and just, I mean, the adversity, the will, the resilience to keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of people would have even written a letter to the White House. I mean, like, a lot of people.
Who does that?
Right.
I tell you why I did it though, Kyra. It's because my former mother-in-law was such a pain in the butt. She just would not be quiet about it. She says, you got to write the president of the United States. He's your president after all. If anybody can help you, it's the president of the United States. Wow. Have you written a letter to the president of the United States yet? And at some point you go like, okay, fine, I'm going to write the damn letter just so we can stop talking about this.
And look what happened when you wrote the letter to the president of the United States. That is
pain in the butt I've ever had.
Right. Oh my gosh. I mean, and just even from you, just, I love the transparency. So thank you so much for just being so honest with us about your story. And I also love that you just said, to God, like, if you've got a plan, now would be a great time to show up, because a lot of times, people, I mean, like, we all, as believers, we all have these moments where you're just like, really, God, like, if there's something up there for me, like, if you're going to make a move, like, can we do it now? Because I'm kind of at the end of the rope. And I just feel like, wow, like, this is such a great story. And to just see how you stayed resilient and focused, and you were able to keep like your cool. I mean, I know you probably have moments, but like, I can just tell talking to you that you still were able to like keep it together. You have to keep it together.
You do. I think this is actually a really good point, because I bet that, especially right now with what's going on in the market, there's probably quite a few of your listeners that say, I have stuff going on. I'm facing serious adversity. You know, maybe you lost your job, or
Yeah.
maybe you had a job offer that got rescinded, or
Mm-hmm.
you were going to go out on your own and now you're not so sure if it's the right time,
Yeah.
or you're just afraid on what's going to happen. And is there another thing? And is the whole government going to fall apart? And are we going to fall into the ocean? So the key, really, what I learned in this massive adversity is that there's a real cadence to disaster and hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And the less you judge it, the easier it will be for you to get out. So when the pandemic came, after all I've been through,
Mm-hmm.
my thought was, a pandemic? Seriously? I mean, I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going like, my life is over, this is never
Yeah.
going to be ending. Because I've done so much of this that I know, okay, buckle up. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
minute we figured out what was happening, we had ordered our masks way before anybody else. We already went ahead and got our Clorox wipes way before anybody else did, because we knew what was coming, because we
Mm-hmm.
had done this so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done this so many times that I was prepared. And then it just came. And then you go like, okay, so what do I need to do now to
Mm-hmm.
stay in this space until I come out on the other side?
Right.
And then the other side comes, and then you just go, okay, well, now it starts. Now I'm in it. Okay, it takes longer. Now I'm coming out of it. And you
Mm-hmm.
just keep going through these motions of, you do not have the luxury, really, to judge that what's happening means X or X, because most of the time it really means nothing other than it's just life happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you judge, the harder it will be for you to get through it. But the less you judge and the more you go, oh, that's really interesting. Huh? What am I going to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
What's another way to look at that? Oh, okay. So we collectively said, we are not spending enough time at home. We collectively said, we never see our respective partners. We collectively said, nobody has
Mm-hmm.
time to tuck in their children. We collectively said, wouldn't it be nice to have a home cooked meal every single day?
Mm-hmm.
We got exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go like, well, I really don't want to eat at home every single day of the week.
Well, it is interesting because as soon as we were getting those things, and then people were automatically going, I want to be back out. I want to travel. I miss doing this. I miss doing these things. But I mean, I guess it's like you are never really happy with what you have. That's what I kind of I got from the whole thing when people were like complaining the whole time. I'm like, no, I'm actually quite enjoying not having to do anything and being able to be like at home, like in a place, not moving, being busy all the time for the sake of being busy. Okay, so now you come out on the other side, you've got an offer from Bill Gates. You say you've got to buy it, which obviously tells us that you were an authority in your field. For the women listening out there, how can they grow their authority as an expert in their area or industry that they're in?
Yeah, great thought, because this is like where women get caught all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This comes from our old program that says, let the quality of the work speak for itself. That is BS.
Mm-hmm.
People are too busy to check the quality of your work.
Mm-hmm.
That was 30 years ago. That's no longer the case.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you got to be able to walk into your prospect, into your boss's office, and you got to lay it down, and you got to say, hey, listen, I'm really good at systems and processes and workflows. And what I've noticed is that the one workflow that we're using has a couple of fatal flaws in it. I think there's actually a system flaw. So here's what I'm proposing. Put me in charge of this program. I'll go talk to the vendor to get that bug fixed because 20 other people complained about it. Then I want to go and overhaul the workflow. It's going to take me about a month to do. And the budget that I'm going to need for that is really only an extra $5,000. And that is to, whatever, because I have to fly to New York to meet the vendor and I want to whiteboard this out. I want to bring in an external consultant to help me map out the automation workflow. That's it. And then we're going to save ourselves probably on average 30 hours a month and another 10 hours with customer service, because people trying to, a ticket has to be issued for the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So your ROI on the $5,000 and putting me on that is less than a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's an authority. That's somebody who knows what they're worth. That's somebody who knows what they want. That's somebody who has an idea, who has identified a problem and knows a solution to the problem. What most women do is they sit there and say, I wonder if I'm going to get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why my prospect is not calling me back. Gee, I must be, what a jerk. People are busy. They just don't remember you. So it's only when you call or put yourself in front of them, say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. I'm so glad you walked in my office because I just had another complaint about that. And if I hear about this one more time, go, just go do it. Just whatever, just send the rec form to me. I'll sign it. You're good to go. You don't know that because you're making assumptions based on your perception of past pattern in your life. And just because daddy didn't pay enough attention to you and mommy was mean and your sister is not so nice and your brother barely acknowledged your existence doesn't mean that that's the same way in work. So authority really means you got to get clear, really, really clear on who you are and what you're bringing to the table.
Yes, I love that because I always, I've done a couple of episodes about that, and where women just think that because of the work that you're doing, that they're going to notice, I'm going to get promoted, my boss is going to know. And like you said, they're busy. They're busy. They're busy just like you're busy. And you do have to go in there and you have to make a firm case for yourself. And also, women oftentimes, are too humble about what they're good at and what accomplishments they've made. It's often that they just want to do it and then humbly be recognized, in the hopes that somebody's like, oh, well, yeah, she did a really good job. But that's not the case. I mean, the case is that you make the case like you just mentioned.
Yeah, you have to make your case. We call this in our world, we call this the unapologetic value proposition, the UVP, which a lot of people call, your unique value proposition. We call it the unapologetic value proposition because it is about deflecting. Because again, everybody else, remember, is raised in that finding that math thing that you're bad at and then rubbing that in your face. And you're going to be able to deflect that and reframe that really quickly. And you're just going to go and you laugh. You said, math, pivot tables? I don't think so. Let's talk about my strength here, what I'm bringing to the table. So this is what my strength is. But then if you get caught up in the pivot table and the math thing, then you're going to go, what an idiot. I mean, he does this every single time. Yeah, because you allow it, because you take the bait.
Exactly. So I know a lot of people might be listening, and I think that, hearing you so eloquently walk through that example, right? Someone may be feeling, overwhelmed at even the thought of how do I do it? Gosh, that seems easy when she talked about it, but how am I going to get to that? How does someone go from feeling of immediate overwhelmed at thinking they need to come up with their value prop to actually doing it?
Yeah. So the first thing that I definitely want everybody to do is then go get my book, Happy Woman, Happy World, your foolproof fix to get from overwhelmed to awesome. So I took a lot of these concepts and I wrote the book. It's available only in paperback. It's light, so you can put it in your purse. You can get it as an ebook, an audiobook, or as a printed book, because it's exactly like, how do you do it? Well, the decision starts with you making the decision today that from here on out, you just will not be ignored anymore. There's a great example that a lot of men actually cite. Muhammad Ali, a very well-known boxer, became the greatest boxer of all times. He became the greatest boxer of all times because he called himself the greatest boxer of all times. There was nobody out there that bestowed that honor on him. There was no Sports Illustrated magazine. One day he says, I'm the greatest boxer of all times. And then he went to his opponents and he yelled at them, how does it feel to box against the greatest boxer of all times? Dude, you're like seriously in trouble because I'm going to beat you up. You're going to have to be carried out of that thing because I'm the greatest boxer of all times. So, well, it all starts with you actually looking in the mirror. And I literally mean that. Like, do this tonight when you go in your bathroom before you go to bed. When you're there by yourself, there's no distractions. You look in the mirror. You need to like this person that looks at you, and you need to be okay with who this person is. And you need to be able to look at that person and say, you're pretty freaking awesome. Yeah, you got it going on, girl. There's so much to you. You're so complex. But it is something that it's an inner muscle you have to develop. And if I may let anybody in on a secret, the thing that you worry about, what other people think, other people really don't think much. Other people only think about themselves and what you think of them. So they don't even worry for one moment about you. They only worry about themselves. So just stop it.
That's a good point. I like that. So everybody listening, watching, you should do that tonight because it starts with you. As we talk about women and leadership, you say that there's a strategy for everything, which I totally believe.
That is a real shocker.
I believe that.
Strategist to strategist, right?
Yes. What type of strategies are there, as it relates to leadership, and which ones should women be using?
Yeah. So number one, the most important thing is, again, that you get clear on who you are. We work a lot with Myers-Briggs, so we do personality assessments of our the clients that we work with, and we do that for many, many reasons. And the two most important are you got to know who you are and what you're good at, and number two, you got to know what other personality types there are that are out there, because if you lead, you need to be able to lead other people that are not like you.
Yes.
So I give you like an example of why that really matters. I was facilitating a conversation with a client and his sales team. And as I was talking about some of the sales script items, I got a lot of pushback from a very young woman on his team. And she's like, well, but that's pushy. That would be too much. So, very classic Gen Z kind of responses. And I'm going like, well, somebody has to pay your salary and somebody has to make those sales. But she was pushing on every corner. So I have two choices. I either can go, gosh, too much. She just doesn't get it. Or, which is what I opted to do, is I said, I really appreciate that you are pushing back on a number of items, because it is important that we understand what that looks like in our process when we encounter somebody who pushes back. Right? So I validated her. We also knew that we had to prepare for people that push back on everything on the team in the conversations. So that's where leadership comes in. So the first strategy for leadership is the strategy to self-discovery, and then being really unapologetic about who you are and what you are. The second piece is make sure, if you have a team, that you find people that complement you on your team, that come in then and help you with the things that you're not good at. So, let's just stay with the math pivot table. Obviously, if that's something in my business that I need to do, then I need to be bringing somebody in who does that pivot table stuff for me, the Excel, because I don't want to do it, and it's not a good spend of my time. And then leadership is, how do you frame that? So reframing is absolutely critical to being taken seriously. So if somebody says, how is it possible that you are this far ahead in the game and you don't know how to do pivot tables? I mean, isn't that the most important thing when you're running projections and KPIs and kinds of things? I mean, wouldn't that make it much easier? And then all I said, I don't think so. I'm, if I need it, if then it comes up, I have somebody on my team. But I find in my experience that, as contrary to what you're thinking, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is I know what the numbers are, so I can build my systems and processes. Now back to my strength around customer and prospect behavior. But pivot tables are, in my business, really not not, but I understand why that would be meaningful to you. So again, it all comes down, this comes a lot with experience, what people say. And I will say, a lot of people say a lot of really stupid stuff. And sometimes to the point where instead of getting upset, all you really, really, really need to do, look at them with an incredulous look on your face, burst out laughing for like a full 30 seconds, just laugh, and then go and do something. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Oh, good one, John. So what I was saying, so let's get back to what I was just discussing, and you take control right back, because there is no recovery from you just laughing about something that doesn't even require a response.
Exactly.
There's no coming back.
Yes, I agree. I love that. Awesome. Can you tell the audience how they could work with you? What are the ways they can work with you?
Yes. So look me up on all social media. I'm under Beate Chelette or the Growth Architect. We work with a lot of big thinkers, big idea people. I have a program called the Unapologetic Value Proposition, where I help especially women in leadership to do exactly, their own positioning so that they can show up a lot stronger, fun little program. And, if you've taken anything away from this podcast, and by the way, while we're at it, will you do us a favor? Will you please go to wherever you listen to this podcast and go give Kyra a 5-star rating and write her a little note, a review, because that is the lifeblood. Pick one thing you've taken away from this episode and share this podcast with one other person. You don't have to do more, just one person where you heard something. Oh my God, Michaela needs to hear that. Just send that link to Michaela and share that with her right away. So, and then once you've done that, then reach out to me, let me know what resonated with you. I'm always more than happy to hear from the audience. And then, you can go and fill out an uncovery session, go to uncoverysession.com. And then we can evaluate if there's something there where we can possibly work together.
Awesome. I love that. And thank you. All right. So now we're going to move into, we have 2 more segments, 3 things with Beate. Going to ask you 3 questions. One is a 2-parter. How do you start and end the day?
I start my day generally pretty grumpy because I somehow I sleep really heavy. So I'm like dreaming like crazy. And then when I wake up, it's like, seriously, now you want me to wake up? So I start my day typically with a cup of coffee. You don't get to talk to me before I've had my coffee. And I do my very best to do mindset work in the morning, listening to a podcast on mindset. And I end my day typically reading a book. Sometimes I do self-improvement, but my guilty pleasure really is to read spy novels at night. So that really just helps me to shut down my brain.
I love that. All right. Now, okay. Number 2, speaking of podcast or reading, is there something that you're reading, a book, a podcast, a song, something that right now is like it's like Beate's jam. Like that's my thing right there.
I do listen a lot to David Nagel's Successful Mind podcast because I find that really helps me with the mindset. With the mindset part, it's very sophisticated, very smart. So I the only problem I have, I'm running out of episode to listen to, and I do audiobooks. So right now I just finished an audiobook called Growth to Growth, which is just the bloody worst title of any book ever, and and I'm slightly obsessed with this because this is for people that are in the second part of their career. And, he explains the concept of a first curve and a second curve in the career. And I found that a really fascinating read.
Awesome. And lastly, what is on the horizon for you in 2023?
Well, Gary's my fiance. We have really made some decisions that we are going to be traveling more. So we're going to do what we tell everybody else to do. We took our calendars out and we're starting to actually block out the dates and booking the trips that we want to go to and not wait until last minute and then miss everything. Doing that. And I had spent really the better part of this year, 2022, to organize how I'm going to do business and who I want to work with and how this all looks like. And then next year, we are going a lot more into providing, especially for podcast hosts, support services to help them to get the message amplified faster, because I find that people that don't have a natural inkling for systems and processes that I do have a hard time amplifying their message just from a tactical perspective. So, we are now launching a program where we teach them how the tactical part works. And then we either teach them how to do it so they can put their VA on it, or we give them a VA. And that's for really anybody who says, I want to get my social media under control and get clear on the messaging and get the messaging out consistently. That's what we are now working on to launch next.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. And before I let you leave, what are the 3 things that you'd like the audience to take away from our discussion today?
So number 1, nobody's going to bestow any title on you. You're going to have to claim your own title. And you're just going to have to get over feeling uncomfortable about that, because that's just the way it is. And I am personally giving you permission to do that. The second thing is, don't be afraid of failure. Failure is a nice, polite man with a stop sign that's standing at a cul-de-sac with big construction that you cannot drive through anymore, prohibiting you from unnecessarily wasting your energy going down a cul-de-sac, just saying you cannot go here. Instead of throwing yourself on the ground, throwing a temper tantrum and yelling at him, get in the car, find another way. And the third thing is, don't take things personal. It's not personal. A lot of it is just life. And those of you who've been activated by a higher power to really move the world, you probably have the most adversity.
Awesome. Love those. Well, thank you so much, Beate. This has been a great conversation. I want you to come back another time whenever you have more to share. Please feel free to come back and visit with us again.
That would be fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back. Work hard, play hard, and slay through the sweat with Nux Active. Nux Active is high-performance activewear that doesn't compromise on the chic. Located in Los Angeles, their diverse, women-operated team oversees every meticulous detail of the design process, from the first stitch to the last shipment. They channel positive planet vibes through a commitment to using the best organic fabrics and recycled materials as much as possible. Nux Active is active fashion that flexes and fits like a buttery second skin. Power through Pilates, dare to reach your hit goals, and strive for that extra rep in Nux Active. Run, don't walk over to nuxactive.com, that's NUXACTIVE.com, to check out the latest collection and energizing colorways. And as a gift to you, take 20% off your purchase with promo code GlowUpGirl20, that's GLOWUPGYRL20 at checkout. Make positive moves with Nux Active. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thanks again to Beate for joining the show today. If you want to learn more about her, check out the links in our show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Glow Up Girl, you can visit our site at glowupgirl.com. You can listen to past podcast episodes. You can also sign up to be a guest on the show, grab our social links, and so much more. Also, check out the career-focused podcast episodes as well, where you can hear from me about my personal journey in my career. These episodes are great for anyone who is just thinking about, where do I want to go next in my career? What am I good at? What leadership style is best for me? Am I receiving great leadership at my job? Is it time for a pivot? And so much more. So check those out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, your favorite podcast platforms, or you can watch them over at our YouTube channel at Glow Up Girl. So thank you all so much for spending a little time with me today. I will see you all next week. Until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.